Oh my gosh, you guys, it's finally here. The end of my recap gossip dumps for Real Housewives of Orange County season 19. What will we do in the meantime? Give me recommendations in the comments. Do you want me to still do gossip dumps from OC once in a while or, during the off time? Let me know how you feel about that. I hate doing content that people don't watch. I like the numbers, high, so I don't like to do BS. You know what I'm saying? For your sake and mine. So like and subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, let's get talking about some gossip that I need to drop before we get into what happened on part 3 of the reunion. I always shoot the gossip part of this show during the day, and then I watch the show and do the recap part at night. So if you're wondering why it's daylight time, now you know. All right, so first let's talk about the war that broke out between Shannon Beador and Leslie Beador online. I thought you would find this really fun. Now, you might have seen some of it or all of it, but let's just go through it together so everybody's on the same page, and then you can comment about it below. So first, let's start with the video of what Shannon Beador said that started this whole thing.
David Beador, you hang up the phone when you hear my voice in the background when you're on the phone with your kids. How happy are you in your second marriage where you filed for divorce 5 times and taken it back?
All right, so now let's go through the receipts that Leslie Beador dropped in retaliation to Shannon's post. So first, Leslie reposts Shannon talking about her and David's relationship. And then she posts her Cartier bracelets and she says, Shannon, you asked how happy he was. 10, 15, 25 anniversary gifts. Do the math, Shanny, and LOL. And then she just tags like herself, Leslie Beador. All while playing symbolic music, so there's like a deeper meaning behind her posts. Then Leslie Beador posts this. This one for Andy. I can be at BravoCon in 2 hours if you want. Just need to fluff my feathers, LOL, or laugh my ass off. I'd spill all the tea and it's hot. And then she does like an airplane symbol. Now, it's at this point I want to remind you that she's dropped a few hints that she wants to come on Real Housewives of Orange County, including, I think, before Halloween, as I recall it, dressing up like a Real Housewives of Orange County housewife and, holding an orange and all this stuff, like she's a member of the cast. So make no mistake, Leslie Beador wants to be on the show, for real. Now, this post made me think she was drinking because it didn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe you guys know. She says, but first I would need to give a tutorial on how to walk in heels. So this is her saying that she would be giving a tutorial on walking in heels. So I don't know, maybe making a comment that Shannon, because she constantly has sore feet and is taking off her high heels, maybe doesn't know how to walk in her heels. I'm not sure what she meant by this. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. Obviously it's shade, but she's not very good at it. So I don't know what else to say. Then Leslie Beador does, remaining in perpetual victimhood is a great way to skirt personal responsibilities. And then she writes growth and she crosses out responsibility. So she's trying to send Shannon a message like you're always making yourself a victim and you never grow as a person because you never take any accountability. And it's almost like she's watching the season of OC or something. I don't know. Oh, Leslie. And then Leslie says this, Shannon is doing too much. The hate she's giving Katie is unnecessary. So she's openly like watching the show of her ex-husband's ex-wife and taking Katie Ginella's side, who you guys know is really evil from Shannon's perspective because Katie was recording Shannon screaming and being a diva and then wanted to send it to Alexis Bellino, who at the time was going out and now married to her ex-boyfriend, John Jansen. And John was also suing her at this time for money towards a facelift and wanting to use things against her in public media to kind of rectify his bad image. And also was, trying to sue her and use things in court. So it was really dark that Katie obviously shared this screaming thing or anything that would hurt Shannon to her ex-boyfriend with Alexis. So obviously Shannon and Katie weren't that close, really, So Lesley is playing the fans here because she knows that everybody likes Katie. And this was one moment very difficult to find where people are not supporting Shannon and they're supporting another housewife, which is Katie. So it's almost like Lesley is trying to align herself with Katie about the TV show that she's watching at home so that maybe she could come in as a support person to Tamra and Katie against Shannon Beador. She's planting that seed. So she's directly trying to get casting's attention, make no mistake about it. What don't I like about this? I'll tell you what really bothers me about it. Not that I'm upset Leslie Beador wants to be on OC. I could see why. Certainly, her thirst is real and I definitely get it and no problem. But what I don't like is she is the stepmother, like it or not, of Shannon Beador's children. And really, truly, even though she probably doesn't interact with the older girls anymore, her doing a public attack like this without Shannon Beador being sort of involved with it, like I'm cool if you want to be on the show and do this to get on, is really shitty because David Beador's children are Leslie's stepchildren and she should have them really on front of mind versus getting on a show and getting her own fame, which I'm sure she's going to use as an escape path to get away from David Beador because it's pretty clear from the numerous separations and how toxic and violent in some cases they were, and in their own words, bad for the children in many ways that they have together. I can't imagine, her doing this. It's just very unusual. Also, I don't think she wants all that in the public eye, which it would be. It already is, but it would be like times 10. So I don't know. She's probably trying to get away from David Beador. Now, Andy Cohen has already decided that he's bringing Vicki Gunvalson back. He announced that during the Bravos, which was an award show thingy that they did this year at BravoCon. So Vicki Gunvalson will be coming back on The Real Housewives of Orange County season 20 or as a full-time housewife. So that's very exciting for Vicki. In the past, Vicki didn't want the pay cut and to be demoted to a friend of. So I guess where they met in the middle is I would imagine that Vicki's going to get a first season character's full-time paycheck. And simultaneously, she'll be a housewife, which is what she wanted. She didn't want to be a friend of. So maybe that's how they settled this, right? At the time when Vicki was arguing that she wanted more and more money, I guess the numbers got pretty outrageous and she felt entitled to it because she was an OG and been on the show for so long. And then she realized Andy and Bravo didn't care. They want to pay what they want to pay and they don't care who you are and how long you've been with them. And they let her go. And then she was in shock. And then for years, she's been trying to get back on the show after being off it because she missed it so much. And she's close friends with Andy. So I think, he cared about her, which is why she got this second opportunity, a little deeper than most, right? So there it is. Here we find ourselves. Now, I did get some other tea. Remember Kelly Dodd? Well, she's been officially reached out to by production. I found out. I'm not going to tell you how, but I did. I don't know if she's announced that yet. But she's not the only one. So even though I think she's negotiating right now, I think there's others that have turned down the opportunity, which is why it ended up with Kelly. And I don't mean that in a shady way. I just know for a fact they were talking to some other friends of mine over in OC land. So, but she lucked out because they didn't want to do it. Anyway, so we'll see. And then, of course, I'm sure they'll bring in some new blood. But, big shift happening in OC. So it should be a pretty good season, actually. Now, Emily Simpson got a ton of shade during BravoCon 2025. She really didn't make any news or any splash, so she probably welcomed the shade. But what happened was, all the cast members were saying they didn't know who Emily was. And, they didn't, she had, high count body, what is that saying? High count body hair, whatever. Anyway, you know what Angie K says. And high body count hair. There we go. It always comes back. Eventually it gets in that noggin of mine. But yeah, so Emily was that. And then Gina Kirschenheiter, like literally could have just skipped Bravo. No one heard anything about her. Tamra made a little bit of a ripple, mainly to do with, her clash with that A-lister, which I like the A-lister, so I'm not going to drag her name into this dirty reality shit that I'm in. So anyway, that was Tamra. No, nothing much with her. I think she had to play it cool because, like I said, Andy was pretty pissed about this, stunt that kind of is coming out on tonight's show. Heather Dubrow also, not a lot of promotion around her or any happenings. And Jennifer Pedrani got a lot of call out with the fans and Andy and stuff. So she's the favorite at the moment. Now, other people are reporting that Alexis Bellino is not up for any kind of payday. Like she's only possibly going to be brought back as a guest star with Gina Keogh and some other OC, OGs. So that, kind of like what Joe did this season. That's one thing. The other thing I heard was that Gretchen Rossi and Katie Ginella are on the fence, and so is Emily Simpson, that production isn't sure about how to use them yet and whether they are going to use them. But I do think they're jockeying for Gretchen. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about these shifts. Real Housewives of Orange County reunion, season 19, part 3. Let's do this. Recap time. Now, let's start with something that came up on the show. They end part 2 with Matt, yelling about his position on Katie, and they start part 3 with a little of him, kind of reminding us of what he said. But I want to go back to an interview he did with that Stu show. I played some of this for you before, but I want to play this particular part for you again. It's going to land different now.
911 text from Slade. Gives me chills saying this right now. Like, I was like, what has happened to my wife?
Sure. Yeah.
So I sit down and I was like, yeah, what's up, man? I call him and he's like, Katie might have just sealed her own fate. These are the exact words. Katie might have just sealed her own fate. What's going on? She told Kiki Monique what we told you guys the night at Mastro's, and now it's getting back out to the group. This is really bad. You need to call Katie, and you essentially need to have her hold the line and say it wasn't said. He says, I'm on the other phone right now with Alex Baskin. He says this. I'm on the other phone right now with Alex Baskin of Bravo. He's pissed. This was all dealt with a long time ago. This was all settled. This wasn't supposed to come back out. Like, he was in like full backpedal. And I'm like, he's, again, this guy started Real House. I don't know his connections. I don't know what his relationships are with top production or whatever. I don't know if he's on with Alex Baskin. I just know that I know Alex Baskin's important. He's powerful.
Yeah.
And this is apparently, he's pissed, and I call Katie, and I get home, I'm like, baby, this shit is that to hit the fan as it relates to this. Gretchen and Slade, they didn't want this story to get out, and did you tell Kiki? I didn't tell Kiki.
Oh, look, another little secret housewife in all this, Alex Baskin. So we open Real Housewives of Orange County reunion part 3, season 19, and it's really focused on Gretchen trying to take accountability for what seems to be that she was following 200 accounts that had hate speak about gays and trans and potentially right-wing ideology and biblical crap that she liked. And so she's liking these posts and she's following these accounts that do this type of rhetoric. She recognizes that it might be homophobic, so she decides to unfollow these 200 people, go through her 4,500 people she follows, and do this gesture to show, like, I'm sorry I did that. Wow, I should have been more careful. And then she also, Tamra calls out, unliked a bunch of posts that she liked before. But then we get to the post, which they don't show which one they're talking about, but I know it's the Shishy Girl one, which I demonstrated on last week's Gossip Dump and Recap was questionable. And it really was. And I even reached out to some influencers that were really hardcore about this. And I haven't been able to connect with them, but I did call and say, like, hey, I want to talk to you about why you think this is real. Because they're generally not people that BS, So I thought maybe they didn't look into it deeply, or, they just kind of like that person's gossip spread and they went with it. But that's, where we bring up Gretchen hiring a cybersecurity expert. So then the bomb drops by Gretchen. She shows the report, which, she could have just paid me the $10,000 and I would have done the report for her like I did on last week's video for you guys. Wasn't hard to figure out. Anyway, Gretchen shows this 20-page report. She shows that the shishy face thing was made up. The more she talks about it, the more I'm 100% sure that's what she's referring to. And indeed, it was a fake post. So then it comes out that Tamra was the one taking this fake post, whoever made it, whether it be, a Tamra-motivated person or somebody else. It's Tamra who takes this post and promotes it to all these accounts to get them to cover it and get it all out there. So, and it turns out Tamra's been trying to get this out about Gretchen all the way back to the cake making party that happened. And then Emily and Tamra really go at it because they're very similar personalities, although Emily's like a toned down version. But Tamra's like, I told you she was going to bring up the podcast, and she did. So she was like, you're an asshole to you, I've been supportive to you. And she's like, I put your podcast on my channel and I supported you. And remember, she did, because she actually had Emily come on the show, which pissed off some other Orange County people that were friends with Tamra. She decided to bring Emily in, and it upset others. So by doing that, Tamra did show her support for Emily. I don't even like Tamra, and I'm telling you that, because Emily was looking for more to do and build her brand up a little. And Tamra brought her onto her live show, and then the live show became the podcast. And then Emily's like, I'm not on your channel anymore. And Tamra's like, oh, yes, you are, because your show wasn't getting the views and they had to put you back on our feed because your show wasn't strong enough to stay on iHeartRadio or however, their partner is in the distribution. So Emily's like, oh my gosh, no, that's not true. And Tamra's like, it is true. I just got the text. So I believe it's true. Yeah, it sure does seem that Tamra wasn't lying about this, because right in the copy, as you can see, it says a spinoff of Two Teas in a Pod, Legally Brunette. iHeart podcast, but definitely piggybacking on Two Teas in a Pod on her RSS feed. Then we move on, and the next part of the show is about whether or not Tamra told a group of people on WhatsApp a bunch of tea to disseminate on their channels, which would surround what was going on in the show. And they were, the plot points as they were happening, play by play, even behind the scenes stuff, and she's doing this in, I guess, a chat that everybody's on, and then she's doing it in DMs with certain people or whatever. But one way or another, it gets back to this particular blogger with the muffled voice, and he's breaking it all down. And he even spills more tea that they didn't show before, which is that Shannon wasn't invited to the upfronts and got upset about it, called Bravo and said, why wasn't I invited? And Bravo's like, oh, we're sorry, we'll invite you now, which means I guess they paid for it. But but this blogger was told that information too, and only Tamra could have known that, or the women in the car with Shannon when she said it. I think she was in the car. But needless to say, really, there's no doubt that it's Tamra who is the person spreading all of the season's tea to get in front of what's coming and to get, rally the fans and start working that behind the scenes, because she knows how important the bloggers are to the show and how it's received and the popularity of each person on the show. And for years, the people who manipulated those things, even bought followers, were rewarded for it. And the people who tried to play by the rules and be authentic and not talk and all that, they got killed on the show, right? So, because the fans that have been told what to do are the loudest voices. I know this from my own experience. Well, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. The whole rest of the show we've covered already pretty much in previous reunion part 1 and 2, because somehow I need the tea too ahead of time. Don't you want to know how I know? Isn't it killing you? Well, it might have to keep killing you for a little longer. But I know a lot more about this episode than you guys even know. Anyway, what I was going to tell you guys is after it goes on and on for a while, Katie, of course, is exempt because, she wasn't there, but all the other women were, and it could have been any one of them or their significant others. Tamra calls out it could be Slade who's doing all of this and blaming her. Well, it goes on and, they play the voice like I told you, and they... and Tamra's like, let me see the proof. And Gretchen doesn't bring out the proof beyond what she already has, or she does and we don't see it. So, and Andy's like, you sign contracts where you can't give the storyline away and you get in trouble. And the girls are like, well, we didn't do it. And Tamra's like screaming now. She's so activated because she knows her job's on the line because Andy was pissed. You can't really tell on the show, but he was pissed. So yeah, just like I said. I will give you a hint, though. The truth is somewhere in the middle of the two people you probably think it is. Because it's not just one person's strategy. It's a few people's. So then we listen to this 10-minute speech about how Heather Dubrow's like, I've been on the show forever and we can't have this be about bloggers or other people off the show. The show is about our relationships and resolution and fights between us and children and careers, and all of those things have to be off the books and no gossip or whatever else, bringing it into the show. No place for it here. And I'm thinking to myself, do you believe this bullshit that she's shoveling onto my plate right now? First of all, Terry Dubrow, a month ago, I covered it on one of the recaps, spilled so much tea about OC, and it wasn't positive, just to say it, okay? So that's the first thing. So maybe Heather should look to her husband and tell him to shut up for a minute, okay? Because she's kind of a hypocrite. Also, wasn't it BravoCon 2025 where you were, charging thousands of dollars so that all these people that are creating all the storylines for the last 3 years for all the shows could pay a fortune to support you and shake your hand and take your stupid picture. And now this is it. We cut all those people out. They shouldn't be involved in our show anymore or bring any tea to us or talk to us about the storyline. Give me a damn break, women. And let me tell you how freaking boring this show gets if all we're doing is focusing on their friendships, which don't exist, and their conflict and resolution. Going to a monastery would be more fun than watching this fucking show if they take us out of it. Just saying. And if Fancy Pants doesn't like it, she knows where the door is. It's revolving on OC right now.